First off, I want to thank you all for coming. My name is Sarah McComb. I'm one of the co-founders for WTF. I may have met many of you before. The pink hair is new, so I was blonde. In case you don't recognize me, previously I was blonde. So we do want to thank you all for coming, just to sort of, for those of you who this is your first time at one of these events, give you a little bit of background. So WTF started about 3 years ago. It was myself, Elena Winters, Susie Gleason, and Brent Fowler. We were all sitting at a picnic table in PTC having a drink going, wait a minute, wouldn't it be great if we had more women and were able to have these types of conversations with more women? So from that, WTF was born. So I want to, first off, I have to put it in the back, right? I want to thank all of our sponsors for this event. So our sponsors are Cologix, Digital Realty, Equinix, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and Telia. So thank you guys very much. If anyone is interested in becoming a sponsor for one of our future events, Susie Gleason, who has her hand up back in the room, she is our sponsorship chair, and she would love to have a conversation with you. So the last item before I hand it over. So speaking of our co-founders and how we began, as some of you may know, our co-founder, Brent Fowler, was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer about 2.5 months ago. So she is, of course, not here with us, but she's here with us in spirit. We were talking to her earlier today, and she's super excited to see this event go down and misses being here terribly. She's doing well. I was with her on Friday in San Francisco. So she's going through chemo. She's got her next chemo appointment in July. She appreciates all of your guys' good wishes. So if you feel like reaching out to her on LinkedIn or something, don't be surprised if she doesn't respond. That's fine. But we have also then set up a fundraiser for her in her name with the colon cancer initiative. So if you would like to donate to this, this is for colon cancer research. This doesn't go direct to her, but this is a fundraiser in her name. You can find this if you go to our WTF website and you go to upcoming events. It's the top item listed there, and it gives a little bit more background as well. So with that, I will hand it over to Elena, and you will get this kicked off.
Hello. Awesome, thanks, Sarah. Hey everybody, welcome. My name is Elena Winters. I am one of the co-founders, as Sarah mentioned, and my day job is Facebook on the network infrastructure team. So tonight we wanted to talk to you guys about exploring diversity and inclusion initiatives at our respective companies, and specifically ones that have been working. And we're also going to touch on how to effectively communicate with our male allies for support and collaboration. I'll let you ladies introduce yourselves before we get started, and if we need another microphone, we'll just have.
Hi, I'm Aurelie Canales. I look after product management at Telia Carrier, pricing, offerings, and all kinds of lovely and wonderful things. I'm really happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Laura Ortman from Cologix. I handle all the go-to-market and revenue for Cologix, and very excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Joanne Morris, and I'm a strategic negotiator for Google. Basically, I acquire co-location dark fiber in North America for our global network.
And I'm Brittany Marley. I'm with Equinix, and I am a senior account executive supporting some of our strategic alliances.
Awesome. Thank you guys for being here and volunteering your vulnerability with us tonight. So one other thing that I wanted to say is, and Sarah, you might have mentioned this, we started out with 4 of us, and we've grown our community to over 625 women globally, which is huge. And as part of getting bigger, we've gotten a lot of questions around how we're going to incorporate our male allies into the conversation. This is very important to us. Our next panel, we hope, will be a joint one. But we first wanted to have the discussion with you ladies tonight, so that's why one of our topics does touch on that. So with that, we can get into it. I think I'm looking at the right one here. So this is just kind of to level set and remind everybody why we're here. I got it. just to, I guess, essentially get more women into the workforce, and specifically get younger women into STEM programs, and then ultimately bring more entry-level women into our industry, and then hopefully from there, more women in leadership. So the first question I have, many of the most successful people credit some of their success to strong mentorship or sponsors or allies. What does mentorship and allyship mean to you? And have you had a positive mentor or mentee relationship example that you can speak to?
So I can go first, if you like. So early on in my career, I was very fortunate to work in the Qualcomm San Diego. So I was exposed to a lot of the wireless technologies right as they were coming to market, from Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and even your CDMA and TMA networks. So by definition, I was probably a minority in terms of a very young woman in the space. And I managed to meet a gentleman by the name of Reed Thomas, who was my manager at that point at Lucent. And with that, he has continued on as my mentor for now almost 20 years. He currently is the CMO of NES Financial, so he actually left the telco side of the business. But I think what is most important was not just saying, hey, think like a man, act like a man, get into the man's world. It was more, we respect what you bring to the table, why it's different, and you actually contribute something very unique to the conversation, and especially in building relationships with a customer base, which is an area I think comes naturally in terms of being able to sort of evoke a more personal approach and what that can contribute to the success of the business. And so we fostered that collectively.
Thanks. Anyone else?
So I spent 9 years at VMware, and early on in my career at VMware, I met the Chief Customer Officer, Scott Betos, and I would say I've had several mentors within my career, but he was a true sponsor for me, and really, stood up not only for me, but other women leaders, especially in IT and engineering, across, board meetings and executive meetings, and really kind of shared our voice. So I think, there's a lot of talk about what's the difference between mentorship and sponsorship, but I really felt that as he was sponsoring me throughout the company, that really made the impact for me. And today, I still view him as a mentor, but really leveraged him in both capacities.
For me, it was a French guy, big surprise, right? Working in London. A gentleman called Thierry Souche, who's now the CIO of Orange group from Paris. And he was the first one to actually tell me that it was normal to feel a bit of imposter feeling, and that I should use that to fuel my ambition rather than for it to hold me back. And I think he was the first one who actually used the fear to drive the move forward, whether I was a boy or girl, it didn't matter, but I still have a fantastic relationship with that guy. I love him to bits. But for me, he was the person who really helped me take my fears and just take it forward, So, yeah.
That's excellent.
I've probably had a different experience. So I look at it as a mentor advises and a sponsor advocates, and I can't really say that I've had a mentor. It's just I don't necessarily think of anyone as my mentor throughout my career. I know that people have definitely sponsored me just because of the opportunities that presented themselves and the encouragement. And I would actually say that my husband, and I would put him more in the category of cheerleader, has been one of my biggest advocates. When I think about allyship, I think of using your advantages, your influence, and your social power to help make the world a more fair place. And I think anyone can be an ally. That's what I try to be. But I think when you're an ally, you really have to listen and learn and believe that people will have different experiences in the same situation. And you need to kind of stand up for folks when you notice that something degrading or offensive is happening. And I think I try to do it for others.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think part of being an ally is, of course, making sure all voices are heard in a meeting room. If somebody has a good idea and somebody's maybe taking over that idea and speaking on it as their own, just kind of course correcting as well, which is really important to do. Yeah, please do.
I know you asked about positive experience. You know, what I would say is we rolled out a mentorship program in one of the companies earlier on in my career where we kind of forced the executive team to be mentors. You know, the CEO asked, you know, who would all be mentors? Of course, nobody's going to say no. And I was assigned the CIO as my mentor, and it was an awful, awful experience. He was not excited to be my mentor at all. I waited outside of his office for like an hour. He was an hour late. I was already nervous. I mean, again, this was really early in my career, a few years out of college. And he really didn't understand what it meant, and he had no interest in it. And so, you know, I learned as we rolled out mentorship programs to ensure that the mentor really wants to be a mentor, because it could be an awful experience for the mentee. And so that was probably one that has stuck in my mind for a very long time. And certainly I lost a lot of respect, you know, from him through that. But I learned that, you know, not to roll that out if people aren't really in it.
Yeah. So. And this is a bit off topic, but not off topic, but off question. Where would you guys recommend finding a mentor for some of the other women in the room? Maybe they're newer in their careers. I know that can be difficult to find somebody who actually cares. I know, that's hard.
Well, I can just tell you my experience. I was obviously very fortunate to have someone, I would say almost a spontaneous mentoring. It wasn't a planned curriculum. There wasn't like a program in place. It just happened naturally. And separate from that, when certain workplaces, you go in and they have mentoring programs and they actually ask you to pick someone. So similar to your experience, I picked a managing director to mentor me, and he declined. That it was too much responsibility.
Well, I mean, I guess, you know, yeah, instead of going through the heartbreak and, you know, just to be upfront about what your responsibilities are and what you can afford at the time.
And I don't know if that has to do with ownership of what you can bring to the table or fear of another kind. I don't know. The reasoning really wasn't provided, but it was, to your point, striking to know, yeah, I'm not going to take that on.
All right. So we talked a little bit about this in our pre-sync that we had last week, but what are some of the programs your company has implemented to support diversity and inclusion efforts, and what outcomes have come from them? I know we talked a lot about unconscious bias training. Any more about that?
Yeah, so, you know, at Cologix, we're still very early in our journey around inclusion and diversity. I just joined the company 10 months ago and really excited to be driving the initiatives and the learnings that I've had throughout my career. At VMware, we rolled out unconscious bias, and it was still fairly new. It was about, 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, and there was a lot of uncertainty around what that meant. And I think as everyone went through the training, there was just awareness of all of our biases. I mean, not just the men, but the women too, even myself. Whether I'm interviewing for a role or, you know, looking to promote somebody, or how I write congratulation emails, every word that you put in there, whether it's a, you know, male or female. And so that really made an impact at VMware, and then at Equinix, which was my next journey, which Brittany will talk about. You know, they rolled that out as well. And so I would say, you know, it was required training, but it really made a difference for everybody to really drive that level of awareness without really realizing that we all have biases.
So at Google, we are highly encouraged, not required, but highly encouraged to attend unconscious bias training. It's an actual class that they offer at Google. You know, it's supposed to, well, it does, give you a better understanding of ways you can mitigate negative impact for stereotype bias, right? And to help just create fairness in the workplace. Then, when you're at Google for about a year, you are asked if you can please participate in the interview process. and be part of the whole recruiting of bringing in new people. And in that training, that's also a training that once you agree that you'll be part of that, then you go to another training, for interview training, and they address unconscious bias a lot in that training as well. So the result of that is, as we're interviewing a lot of people with diverse backgrounds, but also the interview panel, which is 5 or 6 people, also tends to be very diverse, which I think helps the overall mission.
First, I wish we had the conscious bias training. I'm going to take that away with me and just think of all the ways we can make that work. I'd love to hear who you use and how it's happening and how to sell it. Because it's there, right? It's there, and it's in the way that we all talk, it's in the way that we all behave. What we're trying to do at individual level and what we're doing successfully is actually trying to fill in the pipeline of some of the more technical function with more women. And I think it has been a conscious choice. We've had also excellent candidates coming up, but I think there's been a conscious element of trying to bring some in. So now, under our Director of Networks, we have a lot of women. So yay!
That's excellent.
And it's 50-50 shortlists. It's me insisting on my managers that when they bring the last shortlist to me, it's 50-50. Yeah, it's that way they request it from their recruiters. That way they, it forces people to look. It's not that we don't have great guys and don't have great girls, but if you don't look for the girls, then you don't find them.
Yeah. So I think Equinix has done probably an exceptional job in putting the programs in place. I think the devil's always in the details, but we have the Equinix Women Leader Network, which is a women-only group that helps mostly in finding your voice and creating opportunities to share experiences and express yourself. We have programs in place that are company-wide for both men and women colleagues that includes diversity, inclusion, and belonging. We have alliances that support both the EWLN and our HR efforts that are made up of executives, men and women alike. And we also participate in programs outside of the company like Paradigm for Parity, and that helps us both in recruiting and retention and making sure that we have the best candidates and that there's not just equal opportunity in job opportunities, but also equal pay.
That's great. I know at Facebook we have some of the same initiatives as Google does as well. I've been on a number of different interview panels, and they always try and make sure that somebody's representing culture and somebody's representing, the technical aptitude of the person that's coming in, and it's important to have the different people supporting different functions.
I think that's key, executive buy-in, and making sure that it's not just a slogan, that it's actually something that's practiced. One of the things that Equinix does is actually do follow programs to measure the success of a program. I know Google does that as well. And we have surveys that actually help you contribute to the process. Did you get what you needed out of it? Is there areas for improvement? Everything from even not mandatory, but encouraged, reading things like That's What She Said from Joanne Littman. It gives you that unconscious bias that comes from both a male and a female point of view.
That's excellent. That's actually a really good segue. If anybody else has any comments on that, we can continue. See if I can get the right statistic here. So a recent report from McKinsey Global Institute estimated that $12 trillion could be added to global growth by advancing gender equality. Am I on the right one? Okay. And that even at the individual company level, we see a correlation between financial performance and female leadership. So to your point, Britt, how are companies taking serious action and making sure this isn't just a box that they're checking?
I'm going to say something very briefly, because even in reading, That's What She Said, there's controversy, right? We're actually adding, making programs creates that exclusivity instead of inclusivity. And so being able to attribute that to the success or misfortune of certain programs or products or whatever your business is striving for can be a subject of great debate. So giving attribution appropriately and seeing how these programs can influence not just the individual success, but the success of the company and the top line, bottom line, I think is something that we still have a long ways to go.
Okay, so at Google, and this, they do every year they do a survey. They reach out to the employees and they do a survey, and they've done this from when it was a much smaller company. Now there is about 100,000 employees globally. But in the survey that they send out, there is almost a contest in participation. So they get about 90% participation of people filling out this fairly long survey. And diversity and inclusion, many questions. It's a multitude of issues that are going on in the company, but diversity and inclusion is a big part of that survey. Then when they collect the results of the survey, and they have a company-wide meeting, which is then followed up by more team, more intimate meetings, and they basically tell you what the results are. And they consolidate the results, at a higher level, but then they also break the results down by gender, race, age group, region of the world, and they compare it to previous year's results. So they can see where they're improving, they can see where there might be decline and unhappiness, and it helps everyone have an awareness that different groups of people feel differently about Google and about working there and about maybe even working in certain regions. And then you can focus, the company then will then focus their efforts and try to just improve the workplace in wherever our numbers are low. So that's something to do.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, I've done something similar where you're looking at not just customer net promoter score, but employee net promoter score, and looking at the feedback, and you're right, showing that level of transparency to the company and then showing progress where everybody can provide their voice to drive those improvements, because it's definitely a journey. I was talking to a lady at Deloitte when we kicked things off at VMware. She's like, I've been at Deloitte for 25 years and I'm still driving this. I mean, this will be an ongoing journey, so don't think it's just a checkbox, or, we all have a kind of that project management. We want to, have a deliverable and complete it, right, and move on. And this is very different for that. So it's just ongoing improvement.
Yeah, for me, there are some great things that we've done as a tiny company. We're 450, so the programs are not necessarily all in place, but I think make every hire count. So a lot of our new salespeople, like Marie, who's with us tonight, over the past 3 years, especially in the US, have been a lot of good, and that's awesome. For me, it starts with the whole discussion around progression and diversity, also, and more female in key roles. Also starts with really making a point about what happens when kids come into play. Yeah. So and let's not kid ourselves. There is still a lot of generational. I'm going to call it generational because I do believe that the younger kids are expecting different things, right? And yay. There is negotiation to be had in one's room, right? And that's a negotiation I had to do. Yeah, we're going to share this parental leave stuff. Oh yeah. But it starts at home, because you get into those discussions about whose job is more important. You get into this discussion about whose career is going to be impacted or not. And guess what? Nobody is getting impacted if everybody gets impacted a little bit, right? So if anything, I think it sounds silly, but it starts at home. Whatever you're ready to put up with is also the message you send out. And that's hard. Yeah. I don't know what you guys think.
I probably can't comment on that yet because I don't have kids, but it is something that my fiance and I talk about, where I want to be in my career and where he wants to be in his career. And as we plan for our future family, we definitely have those conversations, and it's tough. But hopefully more employers will take on these programs that enable, whatever partner to have flexibility in their work life.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, it is a partnership, and I have twin daughters that are 16, and I think about it every day, talk to them about it every day, and you know, it's just an ongoing discussion, like you said, and it does start at home, and it's a partnership, you know, with what my husband does for a living, what I do, so it's getting that support. Yeah, well said.
Oh, how I wish I had married a teacher with more holidays.
And we talked about this a little bit already, but how can other companies take steps to have impactful programs that make change? So maybe just a couple, one or two highlights that maybe some of the smaller companies in the room can take away from the discussion.
So even just as part of this forum, I think it'd be great for us to share the resources that are publicly available, sharing the reading and the content that it has, you know, both male and female audiences. Programs like Paradigm for Parity, that's like a lean in. It's a global program, anyone can participate, and it doesn't matter what level in the organization you belong to. So I think even using WTF as a way to facilitate sharing that content is an easy way to start the conversation and bring it into smaller organizations. Obviously, some of the specifics, whether it's a survey response where one company is succeeding and another one might need room for improvement, might be harder to come by, but we all have programs that I think that's the point of this forum, is to bring it forward and to share. And that's why we're up here today, and you know how we can share that better and answer questions. You know, I'm open to hearing from you guys how you want to receive it.
Thank you. And one thing we can try and do is gather as many tidbits from this and then post it out and share that with you guys either on our website or follow up. But we'll take that action.
Sorry, not much to hijack, but one comment, and I have to say hats off to Equinix, who recently held a negotiation skills training course and invited members of WTF. We posted it on our upcoming event to open it up and come and attend the session.
That's a perfect example. Thank you, Susie, because we did open it up to WTF, but also it's an international program. So the women negotiating skills came from London and trained Equinix, and we had open seats that we shared with your forum. But also for every course you take, they will freely give a course to someone who's less privileged.
So great. Anybody else, or? Okay. All right. Again, I'm hoping I'm on the right quote. But recently read a Harvard Business Review on how men can become better allies to women. So now we're kind of switching gears into that second topic. It states that when men are deliberately engaged in gender inclusion programs, 96% of organizations see progress, compared to only 30% of organizations where men are not engaged. So first, how can we identify a true ally and a true male ally?
So we, in Google, or at least in my directorate at Google, which is called Network Operations, every year we have a 3-day Women's Summit, which is attended by about 200 people. And for the last few years, I've been very involved in organizing it, the logistics and communications and the content. And just in it's like it's a team of people, all volunteers, and it's about 6 months preparation. Just in the past year for the summit that we're going to have in August, we've had like a lot of men, like 10 men, which is very unusual, proactively reach out and offer their help. And they came from different angles, they all didn't come as a group. So we said, all right, well, normally men don't help with this, but okay. So we brought them into the planning and the logistics, and they've really offered a lot of help. Now normally, the women that organize the event then automatically get to attend the event. So since now we also have men helping us, we're like, okay, we're gonna let them join the event because they're already exhibiting allyship by helping us organize it. So I think when you can identify authenticity and someone who genuinely wants to help, then I think those are the folks that you invite into the conversation.
I'll just really quickly say, I just also read another quote about how if you're starting an initiative and you're trying to reach across borders, that it's important to bring in that other demographic or that other, men in this case, and make them feel like they have a part in the discussion and in the change, and that will drive better success. So again, we hope to have a joint panel discussion soon and hope to continue to drive that success.
On a personal level, when you get to know people, gentlemen who are married to women who have big jobs, they're not afraid. Yeah, it's really silly, but they're not afraid. They're facing the same challenges at home than what you're facing. They are doing the same thing. It can be a very simple way of trying to see that. There are also allies who have partners who stay at home and do things, but it takes, I found so far, it may be a little bit of a longer journey. Whereas our partners, they know us. Yep. They love us. There's a bigger chance of that, right?
Laura, any comments?
Well, just one example I can remember. It's not so much identifying, who's kind of that fit or who's ready. Again, we're all in this journey. We're all in different phases of this journey. So you'll meet some men that aren't ready to go through this as much as other men that are all in and have daughters at home and want to make a difference. But I had the opportunity to be part of a council where we had 30% men leaders that really wanted to be a part of this and drive the business changes across the company. And they weren't, forced or mandated to do this, but they really wanted to be a part of this. And they looked at this as business challenges and opportunities. It wasn't an HR initiative. I think something to think about too is that driving inclusion and diversity is not an HR initiative. We all play a role in that. And so that worked really well, and I think it brought on other men that wanted to be part of the journey. But again, they have to be ready to be a part of it, and it's okay if they're not ready yet. So that worked really well for me in the past.
I think that's key, is the awareness, because the relationships are one-to-one. We've all had an individual, and it's not just women's right, it's LGBT, it's a lot of different, it's ethnicity, there's prejudice and bias in many, many forms. And I think the more you can isolate for the purpose of awareness, then hopefully the day comes where it becomes a moot issue.
Yeah, and then my next question, how can we effectively include our male allies into the conversation to create impactful dialogue? And I know Britt and Joanne, you both kind of had some examples about what you've done with your companies and talking about stories, having the conversation, and it kind of encourages empathy. So either one.
I think my example was the one I just said before, so I might be out of which was getting more men involved in a summit that was technically a women's summit.
Yeah. And that is so important.
Yeah.
Same here, it's part of the awareness program. So a lot of the programs that Equinix has done, candidly, the men are appointed. They're asked as leaders of the organization or part of the Pacific business unit to participate because they're being looked upon as a role model. And so they should be exemplifying the ethics and the point of view that Equinix wants to carry universally. So there might be some that identify themselves more readily than others, and some of them that are there maybe as ambivalent participants, but then learn through the process. So I think giving both opportunities is important because it is a sensitive topic, and sometimes you need a group environment in order to share ideas more freely and not just have it be pointed to one person calling out another person. So I think Equinix has done a good job. We have an alliance group. It's actually led by Mike Campbell, who is our Chief Sales Officer, and Brandy Galvin Brandy, who is our Head of Legal. And they help foster many male allies to embrace all walks of life within the company.
Okay, and I'll ask this question. Do you think exclusive women's groups are perpetuating the divide between men and women? kind of sensitive.
That is a very, yeah, I mean, I think maybe a little bit. I just mainly from comments from the male, executives that I've been a part of, or we'll have an event and they're like, well, I can't, we'd like to come, and because they want to be a part of it. So I think it's a balance. So I mean, I think we need to have, I think when the lean-in groups, were first created, that was a big topic, and we needed a place where women felt safe, in a safe environment to talk about issues and things that they were dealing with, and the men, they had a hard time initially with that. So that's a sensitive one. I would say it might a little bit, but I would agree that I think you need it sometimes, depending on the company and the situation. I think it may.
Well, I appreciate your being honest. Thank you.
I think me too, when that brought to light, I think it put a lot of men in a point of defense. And I think that's one area that as women, we should be embracing the opportunity to say we're not looking at every situation as a pointed affront or offense against us. And I think that's something that anyone has to be responsible about. Don't be judge and jury, understand the intent, understand the context, have your own awareness of the situation and where that person's motivations are coming from. And that's the unconscious bias as well in reverse. And so do not think every opportunity is that you've been slighted.
Great. Okay, let's move on. So the last topic and statistic I have, so women and men point to the need for companies to do more to create a safe and respectful work environment. Only 27% of employees say that managers regularly challenge biased language and behavior when they observe it. 40% say that disrespectful behavior towards women is often quickly addressed by their company. So, if you feel open, tell us about a time when you felt supported from an ally in an uncomfortable situation, and what did they do right?
Well, I have a supportive, but I know what you're saying. So there was a situation, and I'm sure a lot of you have gone through this, where you're in a meeting and you bring up a really good idea, and about 5 minutes later, your male colleague brings up the same idea, and everybody's like, great idea, and I'm just sitting there, and so that was occurring quite a bit, not just for me, but even one of my peers, because there was only 2 of us women, and one of the male executives came to me, who was actually part of this council. So again, he went through unconscious bias and he had more awareness. He said, Laura, is there anything I can do to help through any situations you may be in? And I gave him that example, and so moving forward, he actually started speaking up and actually called it out to say, well, I think you meant what Laura was saying, and great idea, but I think it's the same thing that what Laura just said. So I think he just really kind of started standing up for me and other female leaders, which was huge, and he wasn't afraid to do that, and he felt it was really important to do that, and then quickly did people stop doing that, right? So taking everybody's kind of credit. So so that was a positive experience that I had.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So I know I've bored you all with details of mine, but I'll maybe take a different point of view and just say I think where I've had success is when there has been a egregious offense and it's recognized that management takes action quickly. And that action is twofold. It's both supporting the individual that has been the subject of discrimination or offensive behavior, but also addressing those who did the offense and equally taking action against that. I think oftentimes it's skirted and can go under the rug, and then it festers and perpetuated. And so where management and leadership or mentors or even just colleagues who have been witness, whether it was you or someone else, take action, call attention to it, and that way they can resolve it and set precedents for future.
That's great. Any other thoughts? Okay, we are at our last question. So we did this at our last event. I don't know how many people were here, but we essentially asked, what personal goal do you have this year to help drive change? And we got some awesome responses, so we wanted to ask you guys.
For me, it's going to be about unconscious bias training, right? And it's something, this situation that you describe, yes, and I'd like people around me who are already quite enlightened to go the next extra step and to actually realize some of those things. And that's what I'm going to take with me, is to make the case for unconscious bias training, and not just as we said for women, but just for all walks of life, for all ages, all different color of skins, all different qualifications, because our talents do not necessarily lie in whether we studied chemistry or drama at university, or whether we studied at all. So it's just having that broad base of, let's bring more people in with more diverse perspectives, so that we can serve our customers better, because guess what, our customers are not all middle-aged white males, right? And I'm sure they'd love to recognize themselves more in other type of people around the room. So yeah, I think that'd be nice.
So I have personal goals both from a business perspective and at home. So I would say from a business, we're still early in our journey, so really creating a culture and values around diversity and inclusion, unconscious bias, really taking all my learnings and implementing it at Cologix. I'm really excited to be driving that. So a lot of focus there, and also creating some form of council with men and women to talk about business issues and some of these topics that are difficult to talk about, and having more transparent discussion. And then on my home side, I have twin daughters that are going to be going off to college in 2 years, so what can I do to help prepare them? That's a big focus of mine. And if anybody has any ideas, please let me know.
So I'm going to say +1 to a daughter that's going to college in 2 years and trying to keep her focused. But I'm involved in a lot of initiatives at Google, and my goal is just to continue to be very involved in the recruiting and interview process. Talking to folks, preparing for an interview, carrying out an interview, and providing hiring feedback is a lot. It takes a lot of time, and I already have a very busy job, and so I make the time. I continue to make the time because I think it's extremely important to bring people in. So while I'm sitting here, I'm going to plug. If you're interested in working for Google, please reach out to me via LinkedIn. Please not tonight. No, really. So, and I'll just continue to put those initiatives.
Yeah, so I've been lucky enough to work with a lot of the women here on the panel, and a plug to Joanne, because we've had conversations about certain sectors even within what we do, like subsea, and how there's very few women in the space, and part of it is a generational gap, and some of it has just been a skill set gap, and so there's a lot of, I think, appreciation when we come across other women in the space. So for me professionally, being a spokesperson, honestly, for Equinix, I'm here personally, but I'm really here as an advocate on behalf of Equinix. We are sponsoring this not just from our women's leadership network, but also from our global account team, and Royce Thomas, who leads that organization, felt it was a significant opportunity to make sure we were represented outside as well. So that's off to that. And then on a personal note, I'm actually a single mom of 3. So I have 2 daughters and a son, and I want my son to be kind and thoughtful and raise him in a way that he is also inclusive and has less prejudice, and then I want to have strong daughters. And mine just graduated from college, so now I get to mentor them in their finances and taking them off payroll.
That's so great. Well, thank you ladies again. I just quickly want to mention that there are a lot of other women's initiatives taking place. I know Amy's in the room somewhere. There she is. She heads up Women in Subsea. Speaking of Subsea, so we encourage everybody to mingle tonight, have fun. I don't know if you want to say a little something, but thank you for being here, and thank you to our panelists and sponsors again. We really appreciate your guys' time.